and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTI World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the current political situation of the country, of course, in the aftermath of the 8th of February elections and what is now going on with reference to government formation and, of course, different parties taking their own stances and forming alliances. We, of course, know that the PPP and the PMLN-led coalition is supporting the PMLN's candidate for prime ministerialship. And, of course, we also know that the likely candidate for the presidency is going to be Mr. Asif Ali Zardari from the PPP. There is, of course, still conversations going on as to what sort of role the PPP is going to be taking as part of the government. The PPP on various occasions has announced that it will not be forming any part of the government and will not be taking any top positions. And this is especially important with regards to, of course, the huge challenges that the government, whoever it is that is going to come forward in terms of the cabinet, is going to be taking. There is, of course, also reports coming in with regards to the round of talks between the two parties that there is still perhaps some efforts being done from the PMLN side to convince the PPP to join the government or to take responsibility for the progress of the country together. So we're, of course, going to see how that ends and what sort of position the PPP is going to be taking after the end of these round of talks and when exactly we're going to be seeing the final statements coming in with regards to who it is that's going to be taking part of the federal cabinet. There is also, of course, concern with regards to what the PTI is going to be doing and what now seems to be a confirmed report with reference to what the PTI has finally decided is that the PTI-led backed candidates that have won different seats as independents will now be joining the Sunni Ittehad Council, which is a religious political party. And this party is something that the PTI-backed independent candidates will be forming, of course, as part of the requirement to join one political party or the other. And so we're going to be exploring what exactly will this alliance actually entail for the PTI and how exactly moving forward it will benefit the party and what sort of actions are going to be taken. And then, of course, also the kind of reports with reference to protests and accusations and allegations of elections rigging that the PTI workers have and the leaders have reiterated numerous times. They've also, of course, quoted the Rawalpindi election commissioner's statements that have come out and, of course, sparked a lot of controversy with regards to the elections and the kind of rigging that took place with the PTI also demanding that investigations be taken in, and then, of course, that the chief election commissioner also resigned because of these statements, while, of course, PMLN leaders have been talking about the questionability of the state of mind of the Rawalpindi election commissioner. So we'll be taking a look at what this means and exactly what is going to be there moving forward in terms of the decisions taken by different institutions and, of course, the impact it will have on these political parties. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a senior analyst, and Barrister Safi, Ghauri, who's a political analyst and legal expert. Of course, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Of course, Dr. Niaz, I'm going to start with you with reference to, of course, what has been going on and the way that different political parties have been putting out their stances. What do you make of the most recent decision of the PTI to join the Sunni Ittehad Council and whether or not it's any different fundamentally from the earlier reported alliance that was due to take place between MWM and the PTI and then, of course, other religious parties? And what does this mean, especially with regards to the PTI's supporters in terms of the way that they look at these religious political parties and, of course, the principal stance that PTI had earlier taken? Dr. Niaz, can you hear me? Yes.
It tried Islam, it tried MWM, it even tried PTI. Ultimately, it seems that they have settled on Sunni Ittehad Council. Now, I'm still not clear how that would help. I have seen law. It's Article 104 of the Election Act 2017. It says that for the reserved seats, each party has to give their list of candidates election papers for the general elections, and later on they cannot make any change. So how that is going to help PTI and where maybe staff might be able to clarify that. The other thing is that the Sunni Ittehad Council itself doesn't have any seats in the National Assembly. Its president, Mr. Sahibzada Hamid, he actually ran, I believe, as an independent candidate. So how that is going to impact the ability of all these people, that is another unknown. But the fact of the matter is that it's not the PTI's fault that it has to do all these kind of acrobatics. The fact is that it was unfairly deprived of its election symbol, and it's still not clear if a party had its election symbol, whether its candidates must be treated as independents, because the party is still registered as a registered party, and if its candidates in their nomination papers wrote that they are running on behalf of the party, even if it gets deprived of its election symbol, the election symbol is something informal in Pakistan because of high illiteracy, because rural people might find it easier. I don't see why it should be taken as a hallmark of the participation of a party in election itself. Maybe it can be seen as a small penalty for not having done its elections the right way. Okay, so now your rural population will not be able to immediately recognize your candidate by election. That's a small penalty, and that's understandable. But to say that all their candidates will be treated as independent, I don't see any specific law which says that. So I think that's the other route the PTA has taken. I think they've filed a case in one of the high courts to say that they should still be treated as party candidates, which I feel is right.
Right, and of course, Barrister Safi, I'd like your take on this as well, especially with regards to what is the future of the PTI-led candidates, especially now that the decision is there of joining the Sunni Ittehad Council, and what that means for the party itself. As Dr. Niaz was talking about, that even devoid of the symbol, they do, of course, are representing PTI. What sort of a future then now exists with reference to these independents joining the Sunni Ittehad Council, and what does this mean in terms of the party's participation in the future political arena in Pakistan? Barrister Safi, can you hear me?
Absolutely, Sana. I would actually agree with whatever Dr. Niaz just said. The problem here is the fact that I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I said that I agree with Dr. Niaz. What we have here is quite a legal conundrum. Even before we address the issue of PTI joining another party, there is the outstanding issue of the Form 45s. These Form 45s are not clear. They're being challenged now. And because the Supreme Court has not as yet issued any ruling on it, we are absolutely unclear as to which party stands. Now, on top of that, PTI is making an alliance with the Sunni Ittehad Council. What is prevented from making an alliance in the center with a different party, in Punjab with a different party, in KPK with a different party, and in Sindh with a different party? And if we were to see all of these very strange alliances that are formed, how are we to understand then what the legal standing of any political party is? Whether this can even be done is something that we have not seen in the past. I am fairly clear that this is not something that we can do. So once again, I'm very unclear about the strategy myself. By the way, Sana, can you hear me? I feel like I'm stuck here.
I can.
Yes, we can.
I'm stuck.
Carry on.
Hello?
We can hear you fine. Unfortunately, we can't see you very well. But
sorry. Okay.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So the problem here. No, don't worry.
I think I just
if you want, I can just turn my camera on, and that can just save some bandwidth. But anyways, the problem here sometimes is the fact that the problem here is that we do not have any prior precedents of one political party forming an alliance with another political party in a manner that it is able to get the reserve seat and it is able to then dictate the policy. We're talking about a party merger that is post-elections, and this is at a time when clear instructions have not been given by the Election Commission, by the Supreme Court on what the results of those elections were. The ECP, for instance, has just moved for an independent audit just to clarify things. So I think this is going to be a bit of a mess right now. And once again, the central problem here is that the constant changing of these alliance political parties, so to speak of. I mean, today it's Sunni Ittehad Council, yesterday it was MWM. We don't even know where they'll be entering into an alliance with whom, and whether these, earlier there was also PTI parliamentarians, if you remember. So that's what the problem is. The central problem here is that even if they were to join, or if they were to somehow enter into an alliance, they would not be able to reap the benefits of a political party system that they think that they would be able to. Their best chance is to go and stand as a firm opposition party, and that is something that is most likely the best job for them.
Right, but Faisal, do you think that yes, we could. Do you think, Faisal, that this is something that the PTI is considering, especially when it looks into, of course, joining the Sunni Ittehad Council, that they're going to be, of course, forming the opposition and going to be putting up a strong stance on the matter? Because, of course, we've seen earlier as well that even with the GYF, they have put forward their stance with regards to rigging in elections. But now, of course, when they're joining a party and representing it in the parliament, how exactly will that turn in their favor in terms of the participation in the parliament and the kind of the statements that we hear from the PTI's leadership with regards to their own prime ministerial candidate, and of course the fact that they are able to form government at the center in KP and Sindh. How exactly will that take place?
Sana, obviously, if we look at the different alliances we have been seeing, in recent days, PTI has made. First of all, we need to understand that, of course, their members, I mean, they contested election as an independent, and first of all, they were to be secured, and they have been secured, obviously joining a party, and after that they won't be eligible or available to join any other party. So that is what they wanted to do, because we know that in recent days, I mean last week and a week before as well, there were few people who actually left the party after winning the election. With the help of PTI, they left the party and they joined two other major parties. So now what has happened is that they have actually secured their party members who have been, who have won the elections, so that they can be docked at a secure site. And to me, I think Sunni Ittehad Council is one of the sites where, of course, the chairman himself of Sunni Ittehad Council, he contested election with the help of PTI itself, and that's how he actually won. So he already claims that he's indebted to PTI, and that is why he has offered his services as well, just to secure all of the members. And when we talk about PTI's steps which it has taken in KPK, that is entirely in a different dimension, and that dimension is that they wanted to simply secure, because they know that even even if they were winning the seats, the second position at almost every constituency in KPK, it was of JUIF, and JUIF has actually grabbed on a huge vote in KPK, though they could not simply get the seats out there, but they do have the vote bank. So they wanted to secure that obviously their backyard, and they wanted to make sure that Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who is actually disgruntled right now, rather than he picks up any other side, they wanted him to, of course, join hands with him for obviously scrutiny of the election. And this is something.
What actually came of that? Of what was going to happen over the weekend with the protest plan, with of course the opposition to the election results, with the PTI and JUF joining hands? What benefit did the PTI gain out of it? Well,
the benefit is that throughout Pakistan, of course, we saw that there were protests, and them protests, I mean, smaller or larger, whatever it was, they have created a mark in a way that they have sort of, highlighted the issue of rigging which is being faced. And of course, they are claiming that they have more seats, and they are claiming that they have the Form 45s on the basis.
Have they had an impact on the way that we're seeing political parties moving forward?
Not on that, but I would say that of course the narrative itself has actually created the mark, because it has been highlighted throughout the world media, and we have been seeing that the national media have been following that story as well. So when it comes to Sindh and Balochistan, of course they are claiming that they have more seats in Balochistan, but they only have one. and they have more seats on the basis of Form 45, which we are seeing that in recent times, right after elections, we have been seeing that the only narrative which PTI was going through and which was promoted by PTI was actually the Form 45. They want the Form 47 to be issued on the basis of the Form 45 which they already have, and they claim that the other parties like TLP and like JUIF and like Jamaat-e-Islami and rest of all parties, of course they have the Form 45s, the same Form 45s. So in this whole alliance chapter, what we can say that the narrative, the basic narrative they have of Form 45s, it will be supported by them parties, because all of these parties.
I get that. What I want to understand, and I'll take Farrukh's opinion on this as well, is when you keep mentioning narrative, Faisal, and so I want to understand. So what we're looking at out of these parties joining hands together and claiming rigging in elections, that's what we're getting out of it, that there is a narrative that these parties have now that they can say, or is it something that's substantial in terms of what is required as part of the election results, the way that it's being propagated, the way that it's being talked about? Is it that substantial to the election result? Because a lot of the people that we've had on our show have also expressed that perhaps it was sporadic and largely free and fair, and it's not something that puts the entire elections into question. Is that so, Farrukh?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. First of all, let me apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather. So if I break into a cough or a sneezing match with somebody, please forgive me.
Sudden rain.
Let us hope that doesn't happen. Now, regarding this alliance or whatever you may call it, alliance of convenience between PTI and JUIF, there is one fact. PTI does not need any other political party's help in setting the narrative. That bit is, established, and we have seen they have the loudest voice. They have the loudest voice on the social media. They have the loudest voice also in any polling station. Whenever you go voting, somebody is standing there and he is very convinced that everybody who is voting, and it happened to me personally as well. I was voting for another party a few years ago, and they said, okay, you are from media, you must be voting for us. And then they tried to take me to their booth, right? So they are always the loudest voice. And then they also have very good embeds in international media who also keep on actually promoting their narrative. And then they also invest in lobbying. Nobody else does, and I'm astounded why other parties don't want to spend a dime on lobbying efforts, right? With that said, what was this alliance about? It was primarily about the punching power on the street of JUIF. During PTI's own time, JUIF actually came with a lot of people here, and they somehow tried to arm twist the establishment and the judiciary at that time also, and nobody could do much about it. So if these two parties actually work together, in theory they should have actually created quite a stir on the street. But they had given a date, and we did not see that kind of upheaval on the streets. My take would be that the voters are convinced that whenever the vote is asked, if they are PTI voters, they are going to cast vote for PTI. But when it comes to street agitation after May 9th, they are not that inclined to actually risk their lives or their futures. So that is a given, and I think that one can live with that. So this whole idea of JUIF and PTI actually working together in tandem is beyond my comprehension, and I don't think that it is doing any service to either of the two parties. Maulana Fazlur Rahman kept on calling Imran Khan a Yahudi agent, and Khan Sahab actually kept on calling Maulana Diesel. And with that kind of thing, see what you are communicating to your own followers, right? So I think that it is a hit that they are taking within their own constituencies by joining hands. Now let us talk about Sunni Ittehad and how this actually works for PTI. I think it is a step up from MWM. because this, of course, is not going to cause any kind of diplomatic incident. So that, having said that, let me also just think about it and just keep on pondering. I hope that one day, when PTI is out of the crises that it has been facing, and when it is capable of holding a civil dialogue or a civil dialogue, then I want to ask its leadership, what's with their fixation with the religious political parties? Because there are umpteen other political parties which have their name on ballot, and you could have very easily joined them. But they keep on actually going from one religious political party to another. We know that PTI is a right of the center party. But of course, most of its MNAs are social liberals. So why actually communicate to the people something that you're not? You're different than their religious political parties, and I would have hoped that they could have actually joined somebody else. But even then, if there is no technical problem here, I think that this is a better choice than MWM. I don't have anything against MWM. I think all political parties are important, but this one actually ensures that there is no signaling to the international stakeholders that we are actually making certain choices in spite, nothing else.
Right, but does it also have the effect of putting PTI very closely with religious parties, many of which, of course, Faisal also likes to mention together? Does that make PTI part of that bunch?
Yeah, actually, this is something that actually never, stops to amaze me. Qazi Hussain Ahmad, the head of Jamaat Islami, when MMA was created, he used to call me his son, right? And he was very kind, very gracious man. But in those days, one time, he actually consulted some of us journalists, and he asked that Imran Khan actually wants his party to join MMA. And I just looked at him and I asked him, what do you have against Imran Khan? He said, why? I said, the moment he joins, MMA, his career is gone. Your career, I don't know, but his career is gone because people will start calling him a religious fanatic. So better stay away, right? And he was kind enough to actually follow my request. But I think that even today, PTI is bigger than any religious political party. It has more promise to an ordinary citizen. So why actually go into a lane that is repeatedly rejected by the voter of Pakistan? They don't want any mullah to rule the country. They want a modern-looking Qaidism-like individual to rule the country. So who are they? They are all these leaders who are before us, right? Why actually go into some kind of alley which has repeatedly not been entrusted with any kind of vote by the people of Pakistan?
Yeah, Sana, I just wanted to add something. It is good that Farrukh has mentioned about the example which should be followed by all of us is of Quaid-e-Azam, and the leader of Pakistan should be qualifying that kind of stature. Of course, Quaid-e-Azam is the premier example set by him, of course,
a moderate Muslim,
to be followed by,
a
moderate Muslim. Here I want to mention that even Quaid-e-Azam himself, he actually had a good alliance and good support by the religious leaders at that time.
But by the way, also by socialists.
By socialists, all of them.
By non-atheists also.
All of them.
By minorities that later on were declared non-Muslims. Exactly. Even them.
And right now,
so everyone, right?
Right now, if we are seeing that the overseas Pakistanis, if we talk about the moderate Pakistanis who are living in Pakistan, doctors, PhDs, all of them, if they are obviously supporting Imran Khan, at the same time, what we are seeing that all of these parties, if they are available to be allied with, I don't think there is any problem with it, because I give you my example.
You get tagged. You get tagged. With due respect, you don't see the problem, but any big tent organization, any party that is going to be big, has to be to have a big tent. That means it has to be inclusive, not exclusive. By choosing one kind of political career rather than the other, you are excluding others. Why actually go there?
Yeah,
you brought up Qaeda Azam's example. That is
Farrukh,
example.
I wanted to complete my thought.
That is a brilliant example. PMLN, not PMLN, Pakistan Muslim League, or all India Muslim League was a big tent organization. It had mullahs. It also had very moderate, very atheistic or liberal people as well.
Yes, Anna, obviously when we highlight these things, I mean, nobody said anything to previous political parties who have been joining hands with all of the religious parties. And here I want to mention that, of course, the people or the parties which we are talking about, they have the vote bank on the ground. I hail from a family, I have a confession to make. I mean, though I do not have, I'm not inclined towards this party itself, TLP, but of course there is a large number of my family members who are actually inclined towards it, and they vote for them. Okay. And what I'm trying to say is that these parties, they have existence in our society, and this is what the beauty of democracy is, where we have religious people.
Nobody is asking rid of them. Don't become them. Don't take their name.
Where we have the religious people and the enlightened ones and the center left and the center ones and the leftiest ones or rightiest ones, all of them, they are sitting together, and that's how we can strengthen the idea of democracy in Pakistan.
So it is settled. Let them join TLP then.
Let me explore this further with Dr. Niaz, and I want your perspective on it, especially with reference to PTI as well. And I understand that it's going to be joining the Sunni Ittehad Council, but I want to know then how it will move forward from there in terms of the way that it's going to engage with other political stakeholders. The PTI, of course, has repeatedly said that it will not be engaging with political parties that it doesn't agree in principle with, and of course the major political parties that will be part of the ruling alliance, they are part of this as well. So even if the PTI and the Sunni Ittehad Council together are going to be part of the opposition, how is that going to then affect the way that the parliament is going to unfold? How is the opposition and the ruling alliance going to interact with each other when there is such a strict stance coming right now, or do you think that's going to change?
Dr. Niaz.
Well, the first thing that is unclear is whether, being with SIC will give it, the reserve seats or not. That's the primary consideration, I think, for PTI. The other consideration is so that, it can find a platform, an empty shell, so that its MNAs and MPs become safe by joining a party. And then if they stay independent, then of course, they're open prey for every other party for the whole term of the parliament. So I think there are two objectives for PTI. One is to, get them safe into a party so that they cannot be poached. And then second is to try to, get the reserve seats. As far as I can see the rules, I don't think they'll get the reserve seats, but then their MNAs and MPs will be safe. And because of the way the rules are written, once they're in the parliament, what matters is what the parliamentary leader says, and the leadership of the party largely becomes irrelevant in terms of, the rules of 63A and so on. So it will be a bit odd for them to be, under the rubric of SIC, but I don't think it will affect their, voters, because, the voter goes along with anything Imran Khan and PTI says. And here there is at least a good reason for what they are doing, because they've been forced into this situation. And in terms of, ideological, I think PTI is the most religious, non-religious party in Pakistan. There are, by non-religious, I mean, there are the religious parties, openly religious, like Jamaat Islami, Jamiat Ulama Islam. Short of that, it's PTI which brings, religion the most into its politics, especially Imran Khan. So I think its voter is quite comfortable with that. There might be a few social liberals, but, there's a lot of, conservative, religiously conservative people in the party too. But again, this is all ad hoc. It doesn't, really give, PTI a clear path to, power, etc. And for that, the two issues that have to be resolved are whether, its candidates should be independent. Is there a law which says that? And then the second thing is about, the issues about the rigging that PTI is bringing up. Unlike its 2013 rigging claims, which were wild and vague, very specific claim that, the Form 47 results do not match Form 45 results, and they've even uploaded that. A week ago, I'm surprised no media group or a civil society group has bothered to go through them informally, at least to let the general public know how authentic they are. And then obviously they have to go to the courts and the tribunals. But I think that should be the first thing that Election Commission should try to resolve those 40, close to 40 the National Assembly seats, because they can shift the balance of power. So that should be the first thing that Election Commission should resolve, instead of just letting it join the queue, and then it could take 6 months, a year, 2 years before it gets resolved, because it's a very simple matter, just arithmetic. You can have cases where you have to bring witnesses, physical evidence, and it's possible if it takes months. But this is a simple matter of arithmetic, taking Form 45 and Form 47. So that should be resolved within 3 or 4 days, as far as I can see.
Right, and Barrister Safi, I want your perspective on this as well, in terms of what the law says on this, and then also with regards to what actions need to be taken. But add to that the statements that have come in from the Rawalpindi Commissioner, because this is also important in reference to what, of course, has been discussed a lot in the media, what has been talked about by parties such as the PTI, claiming that this is something that needs investigation, and of course with other political parties not taking seriously or questioning the state of mind of the Commissioner. So I want your perspective legally as well on the situation, and what sort of action does such a statement coming in from somebody who has such an important post, what does that account for, and then how exactly will it be established that what he's saying is in full sanity of his mind, that he is fully responsible for what he's saying and is actually speaking the truth and isn't doing so under any sort of distress?
Right, thank you very much, Sana. So the statements by the Rawalpindi Commissioner were definitely very explosive. There's no doubt about it. Widely shared, and they're still being discussed. I was at dinner right now, and that's all that they could discuss. So obviously they have created a stir. Now, if we were to look at the reactions that have come about, the opposition political parties say that he is senile, that he's mentally insane, and that he needs to be sectioned, which is an extreme thing to say, given that, once again, as you stated quite correctly, that this is a very serious allegation. The Chief Justice, however, pointed out something that is very relevant, which is that if you are making such an allegation, and part of the allegation is that he was being forced and strong-armed into doing what he did by a general and by a judge of the Supreme Court, both extremely senior positions. So obviously the Chief Justice very rightly pointed out that there should be some evidence of that. I mean, surely there must be some way in which this communication was being held and he was being told to do this. It's not like, he was getting this communication out of thin air. Maybe he was getting messages, maybe he was getting calls, whatever it is. If the message was being conveyed by someone, then he needs to come out. If he's going to be that explosive, if he's going to be so socially conscientious that he's going to say that he's going to risk his life and say this, then he should go all out, and he should also present us with the full story of who the people are, who the Supreme Court judge is, who the general is, how they contacted him, what threats were given to him. This is absolutely imperative, and this needs to be investigated properly. I am fully convinced that this is a cognizable offense. If he was in fact under any threat, then this is a matter that is to be dealt with under the Pakistan Penal Code, and should be dealt with by the full hand of the law in full force if this is true. Now, let's look at the other scenario. The other scenario is, of course, that this is not true, that he's a man who, as is being claimed by the political parties, was a corrupt man, and that this was a result of a hefty bribe that was given to him. So, sufficient money for him to just retire and spend the rest of his life enjoying himself, whilst it created controversy that is so large and so big that it has managed to, shake up the entire political landscape of Pakistan. If that is correct, then the opposition party's claim also needs to be investigated. They also need to see whether this person has accumulated wealth beyond his means, and they need to conduct that. Now, on that end, this is an issue of NAB. What I would suggest is that this man be fully investigated, that his claims be fully investigated, but only to the extent of himself. What I'm hearing now is that his personal assistant's house has been raided. That I find to be extremely unfair. I don't see what relevance that has to do with anything. And similarly, there are reports on social media. Once again, I don't know how true they are, but reports that say that his family is currently being threatened. Once again, all of these things come down to proof. What we are seeing now is this huge storm of allegations coming from all ends, something that we have never seen before, at least to this extent. And the fact that he's not the only one, several other people are coming forward. The Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami also said that, you know, he's going to give back the one seat that he got supposedly in charity, and he doesn't want that. So it's a very strange election. There's no doubt about it. We can all agree that nobody is happy with the results. Nobody feels like it was done properly. But we'll know the truth soon enough. The truth cannot wait for long. And we are lucky that we have very good law investigative agencies that have done their that have done their work in the past, and I'm absolutely certain that they will do so again this time.
Right. Farrukh, I want to understand that when, of course, certain things happen, there's, of course, a lot of issues with how things blow out of proportion, with how, of course, a lot of this is cited in the media, of course, as well. And then, of course, there are different political parties who talk about it as well. And, of course, there's a lot of concern with reference to how things are being talked about and how the public then absorbs them and then talks about the elections and how it's viewed internationally as well. But especially with regards to the political parties, I also want to know that, of course, it is would be in some party or the other's favor to just take up anybody talking about allegations of rigging and claiming that so and so happened. Yeah. But is it not something that also the parties need to be accountable for in terms of how they use it to their benefit? Can they just go ahead and actually just claim any and every person talking about the same stance that they have, irrespective of who it is or where it's coming from or coming without evidence? Is that not something that the parties also need to be accountable for?
Right. Before we reach political parties, Sana, there is another very important clearinghouse, and that is the media itself. Yeah. The way the entirety of media, and by the way, amazing things were happening. On one side, this report was continuously playing, and people were being asked. And if you looked at the ticker, you know, there is an association of private media owners that is called PBA. There was a small ticket that was simultaneously telling that the federal government and Punjab government actually owed them money and cleared that money very quickly, otherwise there are going to be consequences. So I don't know what exactly is going on, but there is something that is funny that is at play here, right? Amazingly, while you know, the testimony or statement of Commissioner Rawalpindi was discredited on the basis of mental health, and of course he spoke about attempted suicide. But what I actually took from that, and that was solace for me, that then he decided, and he said it on television, that haram maut or a death that is not sanctified, he should not opt for it. So I take solace from that, because these days people are really sentimental because of poverty, because of joblessness, inflation. So it is, I'll take any victory whenever it is there, right? So one person who was not killed is good enough for me. Now let me actually, my biggest problem with the electoral system and the way people actually keep on talking about it is that people seldom understand how electoral process works. For example, PTI might be talking about Form 45, Form 47 discrepancy. That is something else. But the commissioner is saying something altogether different. He is talking about playing a direct role in changing the votes. Secondly, he says that the lead of 70,000 was reduced to a loss. Now, amazingly, every constituency has polling stations, right? Roughly 200, a little bit more than 200. Let us suppose that this box is the ballot box, right? It is a transparent box, it is in public eye, and it is sealed from sides. Now let me cast, because the time is running out, let me cast the final vote, right?
Okay.
And I did. Time is over. Now, there on the polling station, there are, polling agents of every political party. Faisal is a political agent. You are a political agent. Dr. Saab and Barrister are also political agents. Without their presence, this cannot be taken away. This cannot be hidden or replaced. It cannot, the seal cannot be broken unless you have a cloak of invisibility. No one can then go and vote, cast more votes, right? Now the time is up. You break the seal and you start counting, right? And every vote that is counted is contested by polling agents. They actually verify it, and after that, that polling station actually issues what is called Form 45. Right? This Form 45 has to be approved by all the polling agents sitting there. Now, no polling station has a margin of 70,000 votes. Remember that. And after that, when it happens, all these documents are included in the record, and then they go to the main station, and excuse me, there they are tabulated. Now, if there is a Form 45 which has signature of all parties, it cannot be changed. Whatever you upload on website can be tinkered with, but whatever is in the record cannot be changed. Now, tell me, how is it possible, unless you have a cloak of invisibility or some kind of magic, that suddenly a lead of 70,000 can be cancelled out and somebody else can be made victorious, right? This is absolutely bananas. It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, about Form 45. There is a possibility that there might be some flaw in tabulation, right? As was said that in the Form 47, it was certain things were not counted. Now, it is a very simple thing. If this is part of record and you go to the election tribunals, it will open all the Form 45s and you will retabulate, and in the end, this thing is very comfortably made. Now, the organogram is also important, because commissioner has no place in an election. You know, there are ROs and there are DROs. I understand that PTI kept on agitating this point that these people are essentially, this time you have to borrowed people from administrative side. So who is an RO? An AC is an RO. Who is a DRO? A DC is a DRO. But you know, who do they report to? Not the commissioner. They report to the election commission. So, tell me, how is a commissioner of any zilla responsible for any such thing that is possible? So I think that all these madcap theories actually keep on confusing people.
Yeah.
I am not saying that he is favoring PTI. I am not saying that he has been asked by somebody else. The problem is that when you have free, pandemonium everywhere, there are spoilers from every side. They are not from any party who actually benefit from chaos. And this gentleman actually has spent a lot of time in property sector. And there is somebody who actually wants to sabotage from the property sector as well. So what am I to take out of this? I don't want to invest that kind of, trust in such kind of statements.
Right.
Simple. Right. But regarding...
But do you think that there's still, of course...
it should be investigated.
Yes.
But I think that in the end, as long as you have due course of law, and this is again very sad, that this man actually not only, included the Chief Election Commissioner, but also CJP. Now, tell me, in what capacity would CJP have any role to play in this whole story? And then he is being asked about the military or the establishment, and he says, no, they were very cooperative. So with this kind of teddy kheer, with due respect, this kind of confusing story, am I bound to buy this kind of, rubbish? And why is the media buying it?
Right.
This is the biggest concern. Now, regarding PTI, my humble submission is, this is why I did not believe 2013 elections were stolen. This is why I believe that 2018 were not stolen either. I don't think 2024 was stolen. I think that there are chaotic people. We have the energy of a telenovela where everyone is so pissed off and so angry all the time that they take offense and they start seeing things where things are not.
Right.
In the end, if due process continues, and that's why I said that including or trying to cast aspersions on judiciary was horrible and it should not be permitted, because they are the custodians of due process, which has to continue, which has to start now. This is the humble submission.
Right.
If you have the institutions working, you'll get the kind of justice that you deserve.
Okay, just before we conclude, I also want a little bit to talk about the negotiations underway between PPP and PMLN. And Faisal, your take on whether or not the PPP is, in fact, at the end going to join the government, because this is what the PMLN spokespersons have been talking about, that there is a possibility and they seem pretty hopeful. But of course, the PPP says otherwise.
Initially, obviously, Sana, what we saw was that at the residence of Chaudhry Shujaat Hussain, when everyone was gathered there, of course, they made the claims that they are going to steer Pakistan out of all the troubles, and they are joining hands at that time. But now, of course, day by day, I mean, their meetings, their arrangements of meetings, and of course, they are, several things they are talking about. Then I feel, and in the middle, obviously, from one of the source from within People's Party, I mean, I was told by him that somehow they still believe that their alliance should be with a sort of a group or a group of independents, or they were presuming that maybe a group from within the PTI supported people can actually join them, so that they can come into a position to form a government. That is quite favorable for them. But right now, of course, today's developments, they would be impacting on what kind of decision People's Party is going to make along with their alliance with the PMLN. And of course, they are too afraid about this Form 45 story as well, and whatever the outcome would be in coming future, because they believe, what if the government is formed and everything is hunky-dory and going smooth, suddenly we start getting all of these decisions on different seats, and they are de-seated and re-elections are taking place, and eventually we find out that the government is not having the majority at all. So right. This is what they are jittery about.
All right, thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you very much, Barrister Safi. Thank you, Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, for being part of the debate.
None of this, though. I think the government is being formed, and the agreement has been reached. Right now, what you see is mere theatrics, nothing else.
That's all that we have from the debate. We'll now see you tomorrow.